Oh, good morning, students. Hope you all doing well. Sitting at home and doing your studies on every subject. I hope you all are well. Okay. Today I'll be starting with the next topic, which is cognitive and behavioral aspects of self. Last time we talked about what is self, what is personality, how do we relate self as a subject and self as an object, and we talked about two kinds of selves that is there in your book, which is personal, social self. Today, I will be talking about cognitive and behavioral aspects of self. Now, what does cognitive mean? Cognition means the thinking power, the thinking aspect, and behavioral aspects of self means how do we behave, how we grow up as a personality, how is our personality being groomed up in behavioral aspects is what is defined as cognitive and behavioral aspects of self. Now the first thing under this particular topic is self concept. Yes, I'm doing page number 26. I'm starting from 26 today. Self concept. Now what is self concept? Self concept is something which is related to awareness about myself. How much do I know myself is termed as self concept. Now when I say how much do I know about myself, it can be positive as well as negative aspect. It can be it can be positive self concept as well as it can be a negative self concept. Positive self concept means when I'm attributing myself, when I know my characteristics which are positive in nature. For example, I'm humble. For example, I am polite to everyone is termed as a positive self concept, that I have a positive attributes about myself. I know something which is positive about me, is known as positive self concept. Negative self concept is when I have a negative viewpoint, when I have a negative attributes, characteristics about myself, is termed as negative self concept. Now a person can have either a positive self concept or a negative self concept, or a combination of both positive as well as negative self concept. The self concept is a term which arises from the environmental conditions. If I am behaving in a very humble, in a very polite, in a very positive way, it means I have a self concept which is positive in nature because of the environmental conditions which where I am playing as a positive person, and therefore my concept about myself becomes positive. But on the other hand, there can be situations where I have to behave in a very negative way, and that would be termed as that I am behaving in a negative way, where my self concept about me in a given situation becomes negative. Now, under self concept, the first thing that comes is self esteem. Now, what is self esteem? Self esteem means self dignity, self respect. Is what is termed as self esteem. But in a book, it's written the judgment, the value, the worth that we give to ourself. I repeat, the value, the judgment that we have about ourself is called self esteem. Now, you would have come across people who are very high on self-esteem. They love themselves. They value themselves a lot. They have a respect for themselves a lot. Whereas you would find people around you as well who are low on self-esteem. They don't care about themselves. They don't have respect about themselves. They don't bother about themselves. So we have people with different personalities, where people either can be low on self-esteem or they can be high on self-esteem. Now, in your book, there are studies which have indicated that there are some levels of self-esteem from age 6 to 7 years. There is a self-esteem in academic competence. There is a self-esteem in social competence. I'll just elaborate in a minute. Academic competence is one, social competence is two, physical or athletic competence is third, and fourth one is the physical appearance. Now what is academic competence? Now people or students, for example, if you are scoring very well in class, if you are first in class, or if you are second in class, or even if you are last in class, how does it affect your self respect? How does it affect your self dignity? For example, a child who is who stood first in exams in a class will always be appreciated by the teacher in a class, that he's doing pretty well. He always performs very well in a class. He always have good marks in a class. His paper is always excellent. Whereas a person or a student who who is performing very poor in the class, has very bad academic record, or falls under low academic competence, would be termed as a person who is not intelligent enough. So our academic competence boost our self-esteem. That is why the academic competence is one of the first and the foremost factor that increases our self-esteem. The second one is the social competence. Now, for example, social competence means how competent are you enough when you are in a social environment. For example, if you are with your family, if you are around with your friends, if you are around with your family friends, or people where society comes in, how well you come up with yourself is how do you feel you are competent enough in a social environment. For example, if you look into the TV serials, where students, they are performing on the stages, so those are the students who are high on social competence. For example, Saregamapa, where students, where children of small age, they are performing so well on the stages, means they are high on social competence. Now, social competence, there can be students who are very comfortable on stages, means they are high on social competence, which increases their self-esteem, which increases their respect, which increases their self dignity while performing the stage. There can be students who have a stage fear, won't be able to be perform well on stages, would be categorized who are low on social competence. They can have lower aspect of self esteem. The third is a physical or the athletic competence. Now, you would have seen students who do pretty well on sports day. They do regular rehearsals, so that they can perform well on the sports day. So physical or the athletic competence means how competent are you in athletics, how competent are you in any physical activity that you do, in any sport that you do. Again, it is an important factor that increases your self-esteem, your self-respect. For example, a student who come first in 100-meter race or 200-meter race or 300-meter race would have a higher level of self-esteem than a child who is also there in the competence, is also there in the lineup, is also there to be athletic, but he's coming last, which means that he doesn't have that self respect that than a person who is coming first in the race. So, and the last one is a physical appearance. Physical appearance means your physical characteristic, your outer characteristics, how good you look, how beautiful you look, how pretty you look, how you dress up, how is your hairstyle, all those factors. So these are the factors that the studies have indicated. It's there on the page number 26 on the right hand side. Studies indicate that by the age 6 to 7 years, children have formed self esteem in four areas. The first is the academic competence that we talked about, second is the social, third is the physical or the athletic, and fourth one is the physical appearance. Now, the next thing after self-esteem is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy means self-belief about our own self. Now, you would have seen people, they are grown up so much, but they don't have a belief about themselves, that what they are doing in life, or what they are supposed to do in life. A person who has a self-esteem, high self-esteem, will have high self-efficacy. If I know what I'm doing in my life, whether I'm earning good or not, but I know what I'm doing in life is what I'm supposed to do in life, a person will have high self-efficacy. He knows what he's supposed to do, how he's supposed to do. So there are people with different categories on self efficacy, where either people, they know themselves or not, they have a belief about themselves or not. That is what is termed as the self efficacy. The next one is the self regulation. Now self regulation means when you regulate, when you monitor, and organize your own self, is termed as self regulation. I repeat, self regulation is nothing but the ability to organize and monitor your own behavior, your own self, is what is self regulation. Now self regulation, when I say organize and monitor, the ability to organize and monitor is your own behavior. For example, if I'm doing something on something, if I'm performing, or if I am, for example, um, if I'm supposed to do something, yeah, um, but I'm not too sure whatever I'm doing is right or wrong. So if I do it and get it checked by someone, where I am organizing and I'm also trying to monitor my own behavior, whether whatever I'm doing is right or wrong, is termed as self regulation. Under self regulation, the second point is self control. Now what is self control? Self control, self control is when you try to control your own self. For example, agar if I'm hungry enough and I don't have anything at home, but I know the market is closed as well. So I would wait for the market to open, or for someone to cook for me. So, but I have a control over myself, that I will wait till that time, till someone gets up and cook for me, or if some market gets open, I'll go to the market and buy something. So according to the book, self control means learning to delay or defer the gratification of needs. Gratification means satisfaction. So till I have that delay factor in me, that I can satisfy my needs by waiting for either someone to cook for me, or for the market to get open, that is termed as self control. Now there are some techniques to improve upon self control. The first one is the observation of your own behavior. I need to observe my behavior, that my self control, is it I'm regulating for every activity, am I regulating it for every behavior, or am I regulating on a specific behavior? So I need to observe my own behavior. Where do I lack self control? Where do I need to work upon? So it's very important that one should observe their own behavior on what they do. The second is self instruction. It is very important to instruct your own self, because your brain works how you try to tell your brain to work accordingly. So it is very important to instruct our own self. It is very important to give instructions to our own self, that if I have to do this, this is the way I'll do it, and these are the steps that I'm gonna follow. So it is very important to instruct our own self. And if you instruct your own self, you will control yourself as well. The third one is the self reinforcement. Reinforcement means where you try to award your behavior, where you try to influence your behavior, so that it can be repeated again and again. So reinforcement, under self reinforcement, for example, it is again an important technique of self control, where for example, if I think, okay, if I score well in exams, I'll go out and buy something of my own choice, where I am, I'm motivating myself, where I am giving myself a pleasant outcome. Self reinforcement, it's always about rewarding your own self. I am rewarding my own behavior. If I do well in exams, if I get good scores in exams, I'll gift myself something that I love, by going out to the market on my own and spending money on my own and rewarding my own self, which means a pleasant outcome. Self reinforcement always leads to pleasant outcome. The next technique is, yeah, okay. Now these are three techniques. That's all for the techniques. The techniques of self control are three. The one is the observation of your own behavior, second is self instruction, and third is the self reinforcement. So this is all about for today's lecture. So please make sure you all read Tell Culture and Self, which is on page number 28. I'll start with Culture and Self by day after tomorrow. So students, please make sure you go through all the points that I have covered in today's video, and also what I covered in the last video. If you have any problem, I request you all, please come back to me either by telephoning me or texting on the WhatsApp group, or if not, then you can WhatsApp me on my personal number as well. Plus, but please students, make sure you are in board class, you need to work hard. Please question me, please ask me if you are not able to, if you're not able to understand anything, but you need to work hard for that. Thank you.